Hi everyone, my name's Oli Lane, and along with my business partner Ant, we founded the VR concept in 2016. Before I did that, I had a perfectly sensible job as an aerospace engineer, building satellites, and I spent a lot of time in the pub with my friends talking about how I was totally going to start a business one day. Anyway, when it was about the summer of 2016, just after the HTC Vive had come out, and I went with a friend to go and try one out because I was absolutely dying to see this new technology. I queued for nearly 2 hours and paid £20, and I got 5 minutes in Tilt Brush. And for those of you who've played it, it completely changed my life. It was fantastic. It was fully immersive. It was like a place I'd been to. So at that point, I was hooked. So I bought myself a PC, and I bought an HTC Vive, and I told my wife I was going to start a business. She took this with the exact pinch of salt you'd expect. But to my great surprise, it was a pretty good success. So I rented a coffee shop, set up one headset, joined with a few of my friends, put tickets on Eventbrite, and we almost sold out. It was absolutely shocking. I think we were the only thing if you Googled VR in London that weekend, but for pretty much no marketing, I had a sell-out event, and all the equipment worked, and everyone had a great time, and I thought, wow, this is actually a great idea. So I got home and got straight into my spreadsheet and discovered that it was going to take a lot of money. So my idea was to do something like many of the other arcades have managed to do, which is rent a shop in a mall or something like that, fit it all out, probably have 8 headsets. But unfortunately, for myself being self-funded, I reckoned I was probably going to find myself about 100 grand out of money, and then hoping that my forecast was correct. And it could take me several years to pay back. So I was a little despondent. But then I met a guy called Ant who came to stay at my house, which I was renting at Airbnb. And he was dying to do something like this. And he was sold on VR straight away. And he said, I know where we can do it. So he took me to this pub called the Four Thieves in Clapham Junction. As you can see, it already had some arcade stuff in it. It was all quite retro. There's a big ping pong table, Scale-X tricks going on in there. It was really exciting. So we celebrated and formed one of those plans. And I spoke to a lot of my friends. They said, why do you quit a sensible job and start something as silly as this? And I said, it was basically a really good chat in the pub that got completely out of hand. So while we were there celebrating our certain riches, we emailed the owner of the pub and said, can we put VR in? We've got it all sorted out. It's going to be fantastic. To my shock, he emailed me back the next morning and said, yes, I've been dying to get VR and I can't find anyone who's got it. So there it began. Booked a couple of weeks off holiday and started building VR. So this was the big space we had at the back. We knew we were going to have to do something a bit cleverer with the health and safety than a normal VR arcade, because fishing for customers as they're trailing that rail around is kind of okay if you're in a sober environment. If you've got people and it's 1 o'clock in the morning and you've got them fighting zombies in the Brookhaven experiment, you are not going to keep those people safe. So we kind of jerry-rigged a harness system, which I got a few better pictures of later on, and built a scaffold over the top. We went around all of the different gyms locally to find as many pads as we could, because the pub owners kept saying they might hit their head there, they might hit their head there. We made one strategic error, which was we decided to put it on a stage to make it more spectacular. And the amount of stuff we had to do to stop people falling off that stage once they were blindfolded and playing video games was huge. But the exciting thing was, this is a venue that already had massive queues on a Friday and a Saturday night. And once word got out that you could fight zombies in virtual reality, it was absolutely crazy. So, amazingly, we opened, and our first weekend was Halloween, which was very appropriate. It was absolutely crazy, but we took a decent amount of money, and it was suddenly like, hey, this is going to go great. So I refined my business model, and it became one that looked like it had a reasonable chance of crossing negative cash in the same year. The other thing is, I haven't put the numbers on because they're embarrassing, but it's much lower. It's a much smaller scale than the big scale VRs. But the good news is, it basically worked. So when we started, I did a lot of research, and we were the first VR arcade in London. I'm 90% sure. I'm definitely sure we're the only one in a pub. What's interesting about this, you can't really see it that well, but you can see the zones of transport. And so nearer the centre is more expensive to rent. And being in a pub kind of subletting off the pub meant that the rent was much, much lower, and we already had people coming to the venue, a lot like what was alluded to in the last talk. If you're not the only thing, but you're an add-on to what's going on, it puts you in a much better place. So fast forward to the end of this year, there are now 3 of our VR concept pubs in London. We also have one in Brighton. There are also 3 more VR arcades that have opened up. One in Croydon, one in North London, one in Harrow, and there was one in Zone 1, and they stayed open for 9 months and then they closed, which I suspect is to do with getting enough people in versus the rent you have to pay in that part of town. So it's not an easy business, but I think we've hit on a nice model. We've had to develop a lot of extra stuff to make it work properly. At the top, this is the Mark 0, which was just enough to run. And if anyone does start a company where you're interacting with the public on a day-to-day basis, I can't recommend highly enough just opening something. Because nearly all the problems we thought we'd have never occurred, and a whole bunch of stuff we hadn't thought of was a complete nightmare. But now we've got these lovely booths. We've got custom-made padding that's in chroma green, which I think we're the only people who make them in the world. We've got these lovely harnesses. I've replaced about 5,000 zip ties over the last year with carefully designed 3D printed parts, and now everything's stopped breaking. That setup at the start, we broke a controller every week, which was pretty upsetting. I know all of the repair guys at HTC really well now. But we have managed to get a system where, I mean, this is on a really busy night, so we've got 2 operators, but we can comfortably run with 1 person against 4 people, and they're all playing safely, because they're in this kind of semi-padded room, they're harnessed up, so they can't really hurt themselves. The other thing that we've got with this is it's a really sociable experience. So the games that we run are completely focused on interacting with each other in VR. I've seen it written, but I can't find the quote, but someone said that the killer app of VR is other people. And I completely believe that. When you get 4 people in this game, they're off on a quest somewhere, and then they just get distracted and stop and have a dance for 10 minutes, and they come out and they're delighted. The other thing we've got is obviously it's a big spectacle, so people can see each other. One of the exciting things we're going to be doing this year is playing pubs off against each other, and hopefully getting the crowd involved, which is going to be really exciting. So yeah, that's kind of what we've been up to. These are some more shots of all the exciting places we've got. One of the other things that's been quite interesting is the demographic of people that we're putting through VR. So, I mean, obviously they have been drinking, most of them, but on top of that, we've got roughly 50% women, which I think is unusual for video games. The key demographics kind of about 21 to 35, 36, something like that. But we are also seeing a lot of families coming in during the day. So some of our newer venues, we're offering a 4-player family experience. And I have to say, that's actually one of the most enjoyable things to put people through, because if you put a family in for half an hour, and they all play together, they're on a level playing field. You have mothers defending their sons from monsters with a sword, and small children protecting their dad because he can't work out the button. And but there's no phones, there's no distractions, there's no Instagramming. You're all in together with a completely dedicated experience, working together as a family. And that's something that we're also really excited about. So this is us 18 months later. We've grown from having 2 headsets in 1 location to 13 headsets across 4 locations. We haven't had any VC money or anything like that. We kind of did it from our savings and not working and begging from our wives. But it feels like we're really in a good place now. Like some of the other speakers have said, I'm very excited about Ready Player One coming out, because I think we're starting to offer this, you can really go into the oasis and compete with other people and work as a team. But the fact that we are growing this fast, we've done a bunch of other little things, like all of our computers are remote managed so that we can stay back and do the detailed fixes, so the people we're employing and the staff focus on the customer experience and aren't fighting with the headsets too much. It's all very exciting. So what's next? I mean, this is our latest game, Skyfront. Some of you may have played it. It's the first one we've had where people get to fly around and shoot each other. All of our other experiences being cooperative. We're really excited about this. But I think that as our network grows, getting more of a kind of a league and a competitive sport element to it, I think is going to be really good. But I do think that this model of being part of an entertainment center. You go to the pub, you go to the evening. I mean, the game length that we play is it's like 10 minutes, and it's £7.50. So it's a pint and a bit for 10 minutes of fun, but people come out and they're talking about it all night, and loads of groups go back in again. So I think that what we're offering is one of the most compelling, accessible VR experiences that's out there at the moment. Since we opened, I got this nice slide from a chap at Ablan VR, and so there's about 300 VR arcades in Europe and America now, which is a lot more than when we started. And what I think is really interesting is this chart, which shows location-based VR in terms of number of customers versus the main premium headsets, Vive and Oculus. And according to this chart, they're all about on a level pegging now. But as you can see, we're on a steeper growth curve. So I think that in terms of audience numbers and audience reach, if you're trying to get people to experience VR, then location-based VR can be a really a big way of getting to people, especially in the kind of core like 21 to 40 market. So I think that's quite an interesting thing that I need to work out what to do about. So yeah, so that's us. I've tried to keep nice and short. Happy to take any questions about it. We are hoping to open more arcades this year. I'm always looking for new experiences, so if you've got something exciting, get in touch and let us know what it's all about. We'll see what's going on. And yeah, thanks very much.
Oli, thank you. That was fun. Again, one question? Yes? Okay. The lady in the back?
Are you looking also for non-content, interactive content?
So the question is, am I looking for non-game content to put in our arcades? I'm trying to work out a good way of doing that. I mean, a lot of the problems that were put up in some of the other talks about throughput and about time in the game is difficult. So the biggest sites we have only got 4 headsets. So if you're going to put someone through an experience like that, you want to make sure that it's worth their while coming there and doing it. It's certainly something that we are very open to doing as like one-off or as a special event. We do, Brighton has got a very good gaming community, and so we're looking at putting on sort of showcase events where people can come and try new things, as special one-off nights. We've got great venues. I mean, they're really, really good for hosting events, so it's something we're very open to. But in terms of the regular throughput of customers, I don't think it's going to work. One of the other challenges, of course, is that pubs are very loud. And as you get later tonight, people are not drinking. We have a cut-off where after about 11-ish or 12, we only do games with one button. Because everything else is just, you just can't explain it to them. They don't listen. It's like talking to really, really overhyped children. So it's not a good environment for it. But kind of earlier in the evenings or for special events, it's something we're really interested in doing.
Thank you very much.